Shabbat Shalom, my beautiful family and friends, and welcome to another issue of A Few Quality Moments Around the Shabbat Table with the Rabbi's Son. This is our series for 5784, which equates to the years 2023 through 2024 of the Gregorian calendar, and we are on a quest. We are here to find the answers to life's most important questions. We have come this far many times. We are going back to the source, to the Torah, the prescribed methodology of connecting with our purpose and our mission and our Creator and His calling and will for our lives. And we are connecting through the Torah on the ancient calendar, the ancient weekly method, where we study one little section of Torah every week, and we do it every year. So we're going back to the source, back to the Torah, the Creator's instruction manual for human beings who seek to discover and engage the God-given potential that has been placed in them from their birth, and to make the world a better place by virtue of their life here. Torah is to us a beautiful thing. It is the essential portal of connection between mankind and the Creator of the heavens and the earth. And it thus becomes the wellspring, the go-to wellspring for wisdom, for revelation, for direction in life, and for inspiration. This wellspring is open and flowing. Come with me, let's go to the wellspring today. Our theme for the entire Torah year 5784 is, it was set for us on October 7th, which was Simchat Torah, the first day of our studies of the Torah this year. And it was set for us by a horrendous attack that took place in the land of Israel. And we call this theme this year Prodigals and Reservists Reporting for Duty, asking the Creator, asking the captain of the host, what are your orders, sir? What would you have us to do to serve? Now, our assignment, we have understood over the past few weeks, over the course of our years of studying Torah, but particularly over the last few weeks, that our assignment is to deploy in the earth as a counterbalance to the reign of terror of Ra, Shechat, and Hamas, and the English versions of that would be evil and corruption and violence and cruelty. So to deploy as a counterbalance to the reign of terror, of evil, corruption, cruelty, and violence, and to build and then to offer to the nations a kingdom of heaven-centered society and a Kedusha empowered energy of heaven, the very light of the countenance energy of this for our service model. Our theme verse this year has been Psalm 89:14. In English, it would read, "Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne, and chesed, covenant faithfulness or mercy, and truth, emanate from your presence." If we're going to build a kingdom of heaven centered and a Kedusha empowered service model, a counterbalance, a counterculture kingdom to the Ra, Shechat, and Hamas of the nations and the peoples of this world, then we must understand what is the foundation of our King's throne and what emanates from His presence, and should it emanate from us. Well, in the course of our quest this year, recently, 4 weeks ago, in Parsha 36, Be'alotka, we were propelled into Torah's final push, the final push or impetus of Torah's revelatory scheme. We're kicked off into the final drive, Torah's final unit. And this unit is all about the hard lessons of covenant keeping and of counterculture kingdom building. The hard lessons of covenant keeping and counterculture kingdom building. Lessons that can only be learned in the second wilderness, in the season of extremes of temperature and tension, and under ever-escalating existential threats. That's our final unit of Torah. The main subject of the unit is encountering and overcoming the dark energy of nation rage. You know, the psalmist has said, why do the nations rage and the peoples imagine a vain thing? Well, the main subject of this portion of Torah, this final push of Torah, is encountering and overcoming the dark energy of nation rage and of ethnocentric vanity. Why do the peoples imagine a vain thing? You see what this is, what we're facing, what we have to learn to deal with is the advanced level of toxicity that infects human beings and cultures in the nations and the peoples. Peoples and nations who operate for way too long under the influence, the unmitigated influence of Ra, Shechat, and Hamas, of evil, of corruption, and of violence and cruelty. That's what the subject matter of our final unit of Torah is. And now, as we begin to get into our today's study on parsha number 40, which is Balak, as we begin to get into that, we have to stop and say, where are we? And we look, and Sinai is far receding in our rear view mirror. We're a long way from Sinai. We're headed out into the wilderness, the second wilderness. All eyes are now focusing on our ultimate promised land-based mission, to take the truths that we've learned, the inspiration we've received from the Torah, and take it to the nations using the land of Israel as our base of operations, our kingdom beachhead. And from that, our mission is to build a divinely designed, Torah constitutioned, kingdom of heaven centered and counterculture society on earth that will offer the world things it doesn't get from the nations or from the raging ethnicities. It will offer tikkun nefesh, the healing of the individual soul. And more than that even, it will offer tikkun olam. That is what our job is, to offer tikkun nefesh, the healing of the soul, and tikkun olam, which is healing of the world. This is to be our purpose, our drive, our mission, our goal, our objective. And we're to walk it out in real time, even while the nations rage. And even when the ethnicities imagine vain things about us and indulge vile passions toward us and speak profane curses over us and commit unspeakable atrocities and abominations around us, even in such a time, we are to bring forth the beauty. It's a tale as old as time. Beauty and the beast. If you haven't figured it out, we're supposed to be beauty, and we know who the beast is. I'll point you to Revelation chapter 17, verse 9 and following. It says, the 10 horns which you saw in the vision are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet, but they will receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. And these will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them. And that's our story. Now we'll get to the details of it. We must understand going in. And these lessons must be learned in the heat of the desert, in the times of extremes. We must understand that the nations are against us. We must understand that the ethnicities do not understand and therefore fear and hate us. And that the ways of the nations and the ways of the ethnicities are Ra, evil, Shechat, corruption, and Hamas, violence and cruelty. We must understand these things going in order that we can effectively and consistently serve creation and our Creator as the offset and counterbalance to the nations and to the peoples. If we are going to do this, if we're going to balance out and cancel out the rage and the vain imagination toxicity the nations and the peoples are suffering under, and if we're to apply to them and to individuals on the individual basis and on the collective basis, the families of the earth, the healing balm of Kedusha, of energy from the light and the emanating presence of the Holy One, and if we're to do that with the healing balm of the 5K gifts we've talked about in these studies, the enthusiasm for life, and passion for life, and energy of life, and kavod, the weight of the presence, or the magnificence, the majesty of the King in our in our countenance and on our words. And chesed, the loving kindness that comes from a covenant faithfulness, goes way beyond the terms of the covenant itself. And chokmah, wisdom, practical understanding of how to fix things, how to make things better, as opposed to just complain about them or point fingers of blame. And finally, Kippurim, the fifth K is Kippurim, the covering that brings a healing balm and a healing process in play to the person who's covered this process. We learn the issues of Kaya, of Chevod, of Chesed, of Chokmah, and Kippurim, and that is what heals the people individually, Tikkun Nefesh, and heals the nations, Tikkun Olam. Now, if we understand that we're going to deal with how people respond to situations and challenges that bring about stress, to stressors, how people respond to stress. And I could stop and talk to you individually. We could all sit around our Shabbat table and discuss strategies of dealing with stress, stressful situations, stressful circumstances, stressful people. We could all talk about that in some sort of theory in an ivory tower box. But let me talk to you for a few minutes about the basic human instinct. Without the immanence of the Holy One, without the Torah, without the 5K download that the Holy One gives through being in His presence and releasing Kedusha over us, here's how human beings respond to stress. Basically, there's two basic models. Model number one, they respond to stressful situations and circumstances and people out of emotion. They think emotions are given to them to motivate them. Emotions are given to drive us to the presence of the Holy One. Emotions are given to tell us there's something that needs to be adjusted through times of prayer, through times of return to the interface of revelation and wisdom, the Torah, through times of psalmistry, of expressing to the Holy One our opinion. It's not about doing actions based upon, or reactions based upon emotion. But the world's first response to stressful situations, circumstances, or people is to react on the basis of emotion. Fear. If they can become angry or are fearful, if they become attracted to, or they become repulsed by something, if greed is activated, if lust is activated, these are reactions to stimuli based upon emotion. Beware. This is how the nations work, and this is why the nations rage. Now, the second way in which human beings in their fallen condition, without the Holy One and without the Torah and without the wisdom of the Holy One, is to react based upon indoctrination, ideological, national, ethnic indoctrination, something of the pseudo-intellect, something that is of the diseased portion of the human thinking and rationale protocol. And so they react to circumstances or situations or people in the nefesh mode, in the sense of mind, will, and emotion. And so they usually rely upon things like ethnic bias, or cultural bias, or gender bias, or age or generation bias, or ideology bias, or religious programming. And they apply pre-programmed theo-philosophical grids to whatever comes their way. And so they're trapped in pseudo-intelligence. They're trapped in indoctrination mode. So if they don't react on the basis of pure emotion, of raw emotion, they act on the basis of indoctrination. And these result in vain imaginations. These result in rage. These result in futile thinking. These result in contrived offenses, conspiracies, and they result in foolish reactionism, and they result in getting stuck in stress mode rather than pressing through stress mode to shalom mode. Now, that's what the nations deal with. If we don't understand what the nations are dealing with, it's hard for us to understand them. It's hard for us to deal with them. It's hard for us to comprehend there's a way out of this for them. But there is. We are given a radically different covenant model for reacting to situations and circumstances and people that are stressors. And I call it this. I call it the captain of the airplane approach. You might also want to call it the adult in the room approach. Somebody has to be the captain of this airplane. Somebody has to be the adult in the room. Somebody has to not respond in the flesh or in the emotions. Someone has to learn not to respond out of ideological or ethnic or religious theory, protocols of indoctrination. Somebody has to actually be a wise captain of the airplane whose task is not viewed as reacting to the news challenge in the way it's which expected or the way which feels good, but is instead to successfully or productively navigate that situation of stress or circumstance of stress or person causing stress. Others want to react to everything, and they want to do it with fear and outrage and revulsion and ivory tower rhetoric. But we're the captain of the airplane. We're responsible for preserving the souls on board and for getting them to the destination in one piece. And that means we are the adult in the room. We have to stay focused on mission and assignment, no matter what the people around us are saying or thinking or doing. We need to stay focused on the mission and the assignment of the Creator. We need to stay focused on handling the matters with prayer, with meditation on the Torah, with meditation on the ways and the will of the Holy One, and with psalmistry, presenting our heart to the Holy One and letting Him present His heart back to us. And we need to react to these things not with emotion or with pseudo-intellect, but with following divine protocols and directives. We are here to do His will according to the volume of the book. That is why we're here. That's the difference between us and the nations. They really can't help themselves, or they have chosen not to go a way that will allow them to help themselves. We, on the other hand, have to be disciplined and sturdy and strong and stand strong in the face of horrendous odds. These are hard lessons learned in the second wilderness, in the season of great extremes of temperature and tension, whenever we're under a constantly escalating existential threat. So welcome to Parsha number 40, Parsha Balak. Lessons in advanced social interaction in times of extreme stress. Maintaining certain things. I'm going to give you 5 things that we need to maintain, and then what Balak, the Parsha, talks to us and teaches us to maintain. Teaches us the hard way sometimes. But here's what we're supposed to maintain. First is God consciousness, awareness, of a sense of the presence, the withness of the Holy One, and our relationship to Him, and His greatness and our need for humility. God consciousness. The second thing we need to maintain in order to stay above the nations and be the captain of this vessel and to be the adult in the room is mission focus. Remember why we're here. We could react to all sorts of things. We could respond to all sorts of things and get distracted from the most important thing, which is our mission focus. The third thing, after God consciousness and mission focus, that we need to maintain to be able to have these advanced lessons come out in our lives, is self-mindfulness. We need to understand our own weaknesses. We need to understand what our triggers are, what our flesh triggers are, what our pseudo-intellect triggers are, what sets us off, and where we're weak, where we need help from the Holy One, and where we need help from our family members and our friends and our community. And we need situational awareness. We need to be alert. We need to be oriented to the world we live in. We don't need to live in some ivory tower or imagine we live in some utopia or are supposed to live in some utopia. We need to understand what's really happening and to be able to deal with it and not be panicking by it, not go into fear mode and not go into a revulsion mode of pseudo-intellect. And the fifth thing, after God consciousness and mission focus and self-mindfulness and situational awareness, is Shema, responsiveness. We are the Shema people. We learn Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We are to be people who have our ear and our heart and our being tuned to the true tone of heaven. Shema responsiveness means we don't react on the basis of what men say or what men do or what the nations do when they rage, or what the peoples and the ethnicities do when they entertain vain imaginations. We respond to the Shema. We Shema the voice of the Holy One, and we reverberate with that true tone, and we flow in His energy. That's the issue. So the 5 things we need to maintain in order to process through our culture, counterculture calling, is God consciousness, mission focus, self-mindfulness, situational awareness, and Shema responsiveness. How are we doing on that? Let's start with our call to worship. Sing with me if you know it. Barak hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. And now would you open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are just strangers in this earth, so do not hide your commandments from us. The closing verses of our last Parsha, Parsha 39, which was Huchat, were as follows. Well, chapter 22, verse 1 said, Vayisu b'nei Israel, and then his b'nei Israel moved on, the nation of Israel moved on. Vayachnu be'aravot Moab, and they camped, and we camped in the plains of Moab. Me'ever leYordan Jericho, across the Jordan from Jericho. Wow, we've come a long way from Sinai. We've come a long way from Egypt. We've come a long, long way, and here we are. Jordan, the river, it lies below the plains of Moab. We can see it. Jericho, as the Western world knows it, is right across the river. We can see in the sunlight. We can see it shining. The walls of the city of Jericho shining. We're here. This is as far as the pillar of fire and cloud are going to take us. We have arrived at the staging ground for the imminent invasion and retaking of the promised land, the land of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and of Yaakov, the kingdom beachhead from which we're to launch our kingdom counterculture, our kingdom of heaven-centered society, our Kedusha, inspired and empowered people group into the world. We will remain camped here for the rest of Torah, the final few chapters of the book of Numbers, and on all through the book of Deuteronomy. We will be at this spot. Vayachnu be'aravot Moab, and we camped in the plains of Moab. Me'ever leYordan Jericho, across the Jordan from Jericho. Well, we are in the thick of it now. The beast is awake. Yes, he is. The nations are raging. The peoples are imagining vain things, and they're uttering vile lies. And it seems like it's all about and directed towards us. They are spreading blood libels, beloved, and they are marching in the streets, and they're shouting vulgar slogans of death. They're reacting in fear. They're reacting in anger. They're reacting in revulsion. They're reacting in ivory tower indoctrinations and ideologies and religious teachings. They're reacting, and they're burning our shops, and they're raping our young ladies, and they're pillaging, and they're stealing, and they're threatening to do what the enemy always threatens to do, which is to drive us out from the river to the sea. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. These are the hard lessons of life in the second wilderness. What are our king's rules of engagement when these things happen, when these seasons of extreme come, when these existential threats become manifest and real and tangible and palpable? How can we handle it? How can we not overreact? How can we not panic? How can we not become angry and bitter and wounded and go into defense mode? How can we clean up the mess that the nations and the peoples keep making under their toxic influence of rage and vanity, Ra, Shekah, and Hamas? Well, We've been through it for a while. The king of Edom, we avoided. The king of Arad, when he sent raiding parties out to kidnap and enslave our best and our brightest young ones, and that happened, we rallied and we laid waste their cities and we rescued those who had been taken captive. And then when Sihon, the warlord of Heshbon, of the Amorites, attacked us with great violence, he died the death of the wicked, as did his soldiers who came with bloodlust on their mind. And then when Og, the giant of Bashan, came with a great army to try to do what his fellow Sihon had failed to do, he and his army too were miraculously crushed before us, whew, as if we could take a deep breath. We have seen these people's armies, arrows, and swords. We've seen them up close and personal, and with the help of our covenant partner in heaven, we have absorbed the blows, and we have fought through the pain, and we have persevered through the fear and the terror, and praise be to the Holy One. So far, we have overcome them one and all. But don't count the raging nations out quite yet. Rumor has it, and Torah teaches, that they still have a dirty trick or two up their sleeve. So the opening lines of Parsha Balak are, Vayere Balak ben Zippor, and then Balak, the son of Zippor, saw. He looked and he saw, and he evaluated, and he came to a conclusion based on what he saw. What did he see? Et kol asher b'nei Yisrael le'amori, all that Israel had brought to bear relating to the Amorites. Vayagar Moab milfanei ha'am me'od, and Moab was unsettled in the face of the vast people. Ki rav hu, because they were many. Vayakatz Moab milfanei b'nei Israel, and Moab loathed, hated with antisemitic glee the faces even of b'nei Israel. If you wonder why they tore down the posters that have the faces of the captives, you understand what's happening. Vayakatz Moab milfanei b'nei Israel. They can't stand, they loathe the faces of b'nei Israel. And it goes on. So Moab said to the elders of Midian, in the state of responding in fear, now this kahal, this congregation, this people will they will lick up everything around us. They'll take up everything around us like an ox takes the grass of the field, licks the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king, or became king, warlord over the Moabites at that time. And he sent messengers to who? To Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river, in the land of the sons of his people, to call him. That's Balak, sending messengers to call Balaam. Hine, behold, the people has sprouted from Egypt. Is that what we did? A people has sprouted from Egypt. Hine, behold, they cover the eye of the earth, the heart, the wellspring of the earth, and they're settling in front of me, around me, in me. Therefore, please come now, Balaam, and curse this people for me. Interesting. Didn't ask to have his nation blessed. He asked Balaam to come and do the negative, to do the hateful thing, to curse this people for me. For they are too mighty for me, he said. Ulai ukal nakebo, and perchance, I will be able to strike them a blow. Ve'argashenu min haaretz, and drive them out of the land. Oh, do you hear the rhetoric that's going around today? That I should be able to strike them, nakebo, and drive them, va'argashenu min haaretz, out of the land. For I know, Balak said, for I know, Yadu, these things I know, that he whom you bless, who you Balak, is blessed, and he whom you curse, Arar, is cursed. How does Balak know that? And what does he think he knows? What does the world think they know that they don't know at all? On with these words. begins the story of our ancestors' prototypical experience with the way and with the error of Balaam, the last-ditch effort, the prophet of the beast. This story is a story that we are never to forget. We are to tell our children. We are to laugh, and yet we are to cry, because it has both its sad moments and its funny moments. It features a highly feared prophet of the nations, the false prophet of the beast. It features a donkey who saw more clearly in the realm of the spirit than the prophet of the nations did. And it features another character, the angel of the Holy One, the Balak, Adonai, the angel of the Holy One, whose protection we have. Thank the Holy One, thank the Holy One, thank the Holy One. We have the protection of the angel, the Balak, Adonai. His protection was promised to us in Exodus 23:20 and again in 33:2. Exodus 23:20, we were told by the Holy One in his voice, "Behold, I send Balak, an angel before you, to do two things: to keep you in the way." We're being kept by an angel. And to bring you, he said, into the place I have prepared. So he's going to not just keep us on the way, he's going to bring us into the place he's prepared. And then in 33:2 of Exodus, the Holy One spoke again and said, "I will send my Balak, my angel, Malachi, before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite and the Amorite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite." This is the promise. Beloved, do you know the promise of Balak Adonai? Do you understand we have something the nations do not have? Oh, we have a lot the nations do not have. Oh, and that is what sustains us in our difficult times of existential threat. So the major themes of our 40th Parsha, take a deep breath, and here we go. The first major theme of the 40th Parsha is that all of prophetic history, all of the experiences of mankind revolve around the reaction of the nations and of individual people to the presence of the covenant people of Israel. You see, all of prophetic history and all of the ways and of the nature of what happens on earth in mankind's realm is determined by what they choose to see and do and say when they look at us. It's a hard lesson to learn. It is a hard understanding and a responsibility to take, that we are the dividing line between blessing and cursing for the peoples of the earth. We must be who we're called to be so that they have the opportunity, possibility of blessing. That's the first major theme of the 40th Parsha. The second major theme is that all folly in the world and all vanity and all occult and all abomination and all anti-Semitism is rooted in one thing: prideful rebellion against the Holy One, against his ways and against his will and against his plan of redemption. That's the nature of the second lesson we learn. If you want to understand the nations, you have to understand that their folly, their vanity, their anti-Semitism is all based upon really one thing: not us, not land issues, not religious issues. It's based upon their rejection and rebellion against the Holy One and his divine plan. The third of the themes, or the things we need to know from this Parsha, are that the Holy One zealously watches over us. He is with us. He is for us. He is committed by covenant to us. We are a part of his grand redemptive plan for mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, and for the creation ecosystem as an ecosystem, to bring it back to Edenic state of beauty, fruitfulness, shalom, and harmonious synchronistic interactions. We are zealously watched over as his covenant people, not because he hates others, because he knows they need a testimony of witness of truth, a testimony of a better, more excellent way. And he has designed us to be capable of carrying it, but we do not always do so. Heaven forbid if we do not. The fourth theme of this Parsha is that we have weaknesses. We have triggers. We have problems in our flesh and in our own pseudo-intellect, the same problems the nations have. We just have tools and we have opportunities that they don't have. So we have weaknesses, and the nations understand those weaknesses because they are their own. And they know how to exploit our weaknesses and our triggers and our problems because they have them too. So we have to understand that we have a distractibility factor. We can be distracted from our mission. We have an ivory tower judgmentalism problem. We tend to rather jump into an ivory tower and judge somebody than get down, roll up our sleeves with them and work through the problem and bring about a solution. We have a materialism focus problem. We tend to see tangible things, material things, temporal things, and overemphasize and overvalue them greatly, and not see them as a key or a tool to accomplish divine and eternal purposes, but see them as a goal unto themselves. And the nations know we have this problem, and they play it against us. The nations also, because they have such a thing, know we have a voyeurism or thrill, an envy trigger as well. We can be seduced by our curiosity about fleshly things. We can be caught up in the desire for thrills and entertainment and fun, and we can get caught up in envy between classes, between cultures, between ethnicities. We can get caught up in this, and the world knows it, and they will exploit every one of them. And their rhetoric and their oratory and their propaganda will be aimed at dividing us and distracting us and getting us all self-righteous and judgmental to make fools of ourselves, getting all material and temporal and losing focus. But if we shema, if we maintain connection through the Torah, through the portal of connection with the Holy One, if we follow the disciplines of the Messiah has taught us, if we stay online with heaven and on task according to Torah, the Holy One will enable us to overcome and transcend the weaknesses, the triggers, the exploitation of the nations and their orators. So that's the themes of this week. The takeaways this week. I'll give you the first takeaway from the Parsha as I see it is the covenant nation is blessed by the Holy One. I hope you realize that. I hope you feel that. Blessed Barak, it means to release from limitations and restrictions, to enable, empower to reach potential, the nation of Israel, the covenant people. We have a connection with the Creator, and that makes us blessed by Him. We have the Torah, which is the actual blessings follow the Torah, not the people. And since we carry the Torah, it follows us. The covenant nation is blessed by the Holy One. And because the Holy One's nation, the covenant nation, is blessed, and the people of the Torah are blessed by the Holy One, we cannot be cursed by the wizards or sorcerers or politicians or ideologues of the world, the nations that rage, or the peoples that imagine the vain thing, the cabals, the elites. We cannot be cursed by them. We cannot be put under spells of restriction and limitation by them. But we can. The offshoot or the corollary of this first takeaway is that while we are blessed and cannot be cursed by the nations, we can, unfortunately, if we break connection with the Holy One, if we get distracted or deceived or tricked by our own flesh and pseudo-intellect into voluntarily walking right out away from the Torah, they walk right out from under the Holy One's blessing. And yes, while other people cannot curse us, we will curse ourselves and do what the nations could never do with all their weapons. We will destroy ourselves. The second takeaway from this parsha is that we are the strongest and most effective at what we do when we are a people dwelling alone, not reckoning ourselves among the nations. You may recognize some of the words, the prophecy of Balaam in that discussion. Let me repeat it for you. We are strongest and we are most effective in our task and mission when we are a people dwelling alone and not reckoning ourselves among the nations. When we don't try to be like the nations or the ethnicity. We don't identify ourselves by ethnicity. We don't identify ourselves by ideology. We don't identify ourselves by national origin. We understand we are the people of the covenant, and that binds us together in ways that set us apart from all the other nations. We aren't part of any of them. Though this is the issue. We're strongest, most effective when we are a people dwelling alone, not reckoning ourselves among the nations. There's a corollary, unfortunate corollary to that. We are at our weakest when we mix with and begin to think and talk and live like the nations, when we envy what they have, or want what they want, or we value what they value, or we fear what they fear, or we prioritize what they prioritize. That's the way to destroy yourself and fail in your mission. The third takeaway of this parsha that I would encourage you to think about, beloved, is that the Holy One chooses not to join with the nations in judging our iniquity or our wickedness. The Holy One does not see iniquity in Yaakov or wickedness in Israel. It doesn't mean there doesn't exist. It means he chooses to overlook it for sake of the covenant and for the great grand plan, for the calling upon Israel. He chooses not to judge the iniquity or the wickedness the way the world does, and turn his back on us and turn up his nose toward us and hate us the way they do. Now, the corollary to takeaway number 3 is that what I just said does not mean that we get away with rebelling against him. It does not mean we get away with abandoning the Torah or just blowing it off. You see, while he does not join the nations in condemning us, he cleans up his own, and he disciplines his household and those he loves. And his discipline can feel like the epitome of tough love. But he will never join with the nations or take their side in their anti-Semitic tropes. He will never take up their venom. He will never cry from the river to the sea. He will never participate in it. He will always rise up against and will thwart all their holy wars, their jihads against us. And they can't handle that. And so we see Psalm 2 acting out when he rises up and defends and protects us. When he steps in and intervenes, though we do not necessarily deserve it. When he intervenes on our behalf, Psalm 2 arises, and they say, the nations rage, and the peoples imagine a vain thing. The fourth takeaway connected to that is that the angel of the Holy One, Balak Adonai, is with us to protect us and defend us from those who hate us on account of our relationship with and service to the Holy One. The angel of the Holy One is with us to protect us and to defend us and to direct us and guide us from those who hate us on account of our relationship with and account of our service to the Holy One. But the corollary to this takeaway is that even though he will do these things, he will not protect us from the consequences of our own folly. He will not protect us from our rebellion against the Holy One. His mission and his assignment and his Torah instructions are beautiful and wonderful, and if we follow them, then it all will be well. But if we follow the ways of the nations, if we follow the ways and embrace the vanities of the ethnicities, the ethnic groups of the world, and the ideologies of the world, and the classes of the world, and the governments of the world, and the scientists of the world, and the education systems of the world, and the medicine systems of the world, if we follow their elitist cabal theories and ways, then the natural laws of sowing and reaping will be allowed to have its inevitable effect. And it will not be pretty, even though if we had just walked in the ways of the Holy One, the angel of the Holy One would have protected us and defended us. The fifth takeaway from the Parsha of Balak is that the Holy One's plan for us will kick into its highest gear soon. When? It will kick into its highest gear when he brings Messiah forth from the tribe of Yehudah, and brings him forth to rule the nations from the city of Jerusalem. This is the plan, this is the strategy, this is going to happen, and may it happen soon. But the corollary is that the Messiah is coming, and his establishing of the reign of the kingdom of heaven upon the earth will be according to his timing, the Holy One's timing, not according to ours or our need or our sense of need. his reign will be according to the Holy One's grand plan of redemption and restoration, not according to our sense of justice and vengeance. The Holy One will bring forth through Messiah redemption and restoration, and tikkun nefesh, the healing of the soul, and tikkun olam, the restoration of the world to its Edenic state, not the revenge we may want, or the punishment we think is due, or the vengeance we seek to have as fallen men might envision. This is the takeaway. Balaam will actually prophesy the coming of Messiah, the star, and the one that comes forth, the lawgiver. And the one's the lawgiver. You see, these things will take place. Let's talk about what Peter, Kepha, said about Parsha Balak. Now, I want to run to the end. There's a little verse, chapter 2, beginning with verse 9 of Second Peter. There's this discussion, and at the end of it, he says, of a certain people, he says, they have a heart trained in covetous practices. Now, this is the nations that rage and the people that imagine a vain thing. And they are accursed children. They have forsaken the right way. Keep listening now. I know I'm going a long way. They have forsaken the right way, and they have gone astray, following the way of Balaam. Oh, I told you we were going to be studying about the way of Balaam and our experiences in the wilderness with the way of Balaam. So let's go through that again. They have a heart trained in covetous practices. How has your heart been trained? And they are accursed children. They have not walked into the blessing because they've not walked in the Torah and the ways. The Torah brings the blessing. They have forsaken the right way, the ways of righteousness, the ways of the king. And they have gone astray following the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who is the star, the dark star of our Parsha, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. Well, welcome to the last major effort the nations have of blotting us out. The last weapon they have in the season of extremes, in the latter days and in the present days leading up to those latter days. The dark energy realm of occult practice. Bringing those who work in the supernatural to bear with those who work in the intellectual, the theological, the theoretical, the ivory tower world, like the beast. The beast is the man of the ivory tower. And his prophet, his false prophet, is the man of the occult. What does occult mean? You hear the word all the time, but what does it mean? It means hidden or secret. It means pertaining to the supernatural, but not to the spiritual of heaven. It means pertaining to the mystical, the dark energy of man, or the magical, the arts of deception. It involves misdirection, baiting of the eyes and ears of men, to deceive them, presenting one highly stimulating thing in view. Pick a card, any card. That's the bait or the illusion, the bait illusion. But in the meantime, while they're showing you this highly stimulating thing, they're stealthily, subtly concealing what they're really doing, what they're planning, they're ultimately seeking to accomplish, which is their end game. So we have the bait illusion, and then we have the distraction, and then we have the end game. This is the way in which the occult works. It includes magic, or wizardry, or spells and potions, magic, words and formulas and enchantments. The world of the occult, which is being the last bastion of the world's ways of defeating us, they hope. Witchcraft, which is manipulation by virtue of enchantings and visions and sights and sounds. Witchery, which is using objects to bring luck or ward off evil spirits. Charms, amulets, talismans. Then there's sorcery, which is the use of power derived from contact and communication with unclean spirits. And then there's necromancy, which is communications or supposed communications with the dead, those from the other side of the life continuum. And then there's augury, which is fortune-telling or foretelling futures or fortunes, or omenology, interpreting omens about the future. And then there's ritual sacrifice or ceremony, which is attempted manipulation of a god or other spirit via ritualistic spilling of blood and canting or chanting of words or sounds. And then there's divination, summoning, seeking knowledge from unclean spirits, seeking direction from unclean spirits. These are all the various realms, or some of the various realms of occult. But the secret of occult is that the practitioner of it practices or presents to his mark, his proposed victim, an illusion of knowledge, power, and the ability to manipulate people and situations and or affections. You see, I've told you the main ways the nations and the peoples deal with situations involving stress or causing stress is the emotions, is the pseudo-intellect, or the ivory tower thinking process and indoctrinations. And here's the third, the final one, and that is the occult. They deal with it through the occult. The illusion of power, knowledge, and the ability to manipulate people and situations with that bait and with that distraction and with that end game. So once the mark or the proposed victim of the occult takes the bait, the occult practitioner employs a series of props and mystical sounding rituals and ceremonies and impressive sounding chants or orations, the distraction, to draw the mark's attention toward what he wants him to focus on, which is the play. And once the occult practitioner has the mark distracted by the play, he can easily take whatever he wants from the mark. That's the end game of the con, without even the mark even noticing he's been taken. So look yonder, as we begin our discussions. Look yonder, here come two masters of the craft of the occult, Balak and Balaam. While these two will also be playing and conning each other during this parsha, that's because that's what occult practitioners do anytime they work together. Their real mark will be B'nai Israel. Their real mark will be to defeat the plan and the grand scheme of the Holy One. They will use the bait. The bait will be the con of the illusion of supernatural occult ability to bless or to curse. Only the Holy One has that right, that ability. But they will assume it. They will create an illusion of it, an understanding of the thinking that they have it. And that'll be their bait. And then they use the distraction. The distraction is a series of showy altars and bloody rituals, sacrifices on the hills of Moab, overlooking our camp, and spiritual sounding hocus pocus. Oh, the man with the one eye that opens the eye, all the stuff he's going to say. And then the play will be the prophetic oracles coming out of trances and the supposedly from the gods information that Balaam is going to spew out and play to the hilt. Ah, what a game, what a show, what a dog and pony. Well, what is this to us? What is our skin in the game? And what are the stakes? The end game of this great con of the latter days, of the Balak and Balaam ilk, they want to destroy B'nai Israel, or at least neutralize us where we cannot accomplish the end game plan of the Holy One. And they want to do this by driving a wedge between us and our divine benefactor, the Holy One. And their plan to accomplish this is really not by the play. That's just a game they're playing. That's just a show they're putting on. That's just the distraction. What they're really planning on doing from the very beginning was to use the beautiful and promiscuous Midiani and Moabi women to seduce us, to seduce our young men into the most serious varieties of breach of covenant imaginable, to sexual perversion, to bowing to idols, to serving pagan gods, and to taking the abomination that causes desolation of that generation, of that play, into the holy tabernacle itself to pollute sacred courts. So, as we read from Parsha Balak, watch closely now and see how the expert occult practitioners deceive the nation. See how the false prophet will behave and cause the peoples of the world to imagine a vain thing and wreak unholy havoc on even the elect. Well, the story that we'll read comes with this basic series of events. First of all, Balak is going to ride a wave of fear, reaction of fear and anti-Semitism to power in Moab. And then a great conspiracy is going to be created between Moab and the nations, particularly Midian, and with Balaam of Beor. And so this great company of nations is going to be, this great conspiracy of nations is going to be hatched, grand alliance of the latter days. And then in the third act of the play, the false prophet will be discovered, consulted, and enlisted in the enterprise. And it will be quite an event, quite a show. And then the Holy One will neither sleep nor slumber, but he will intervene with the angel, Balak, Adonai. And then we will see that after he takes authority over the false prophet and limits what he can do, then we have the false prophet will actually speak things that are the exact opposite of what we thought, what Balak and what the people thought he would be speaking. He will speak blessings over Bnei Israel that are the heart of the Holy One over them. How lovely are your tents, O Yaakov, your tabernacles, Israel. I see him, not now, far away I see him coming, the star. Yes, you see the Messiah coming, all these different things. And he'll give us an oracle about the nations that are coming against Israel, all that come against Israel, what will happen to them, and how Israel will be exalted above them all. And then he will go quiet. And there will be a sing as if the battle has been won. And that's when the real battle will begin. And the nations will begin to exploit our Achilles heel, our temptation index. And that's when the sin of Baal, Peor, will take place. And we will see horrendous things take place in our camp. We could not be cursed, but we can walk out from under the protection of the Balak Adonai. And we can find the worst possible solution, the worst possible distraction in the world. Well, let's talk about Balak, the king of Moab. Torah's way of introducing him to us is as Balak, the son of Zippor. And it says that the first thing it tells us about him is that he saw. He looked and he saw. He chose what to see, and what he chose to see was all Israel had done to the Amorite. Now, if you and I look at the text of what happened, Israel didn't do anything to the Amorite. So he didn't see what he thinks he saw, but he chose what he wanted to see. He only sees what he wants to see. He's a real nowhere man, as the Beatles might have said. He sees what he wants to see, and he sees Israel doing horrible things to the Amorite. When what really happened, isn't that a total spin on what really happened? Didn't the Amorite attack us? Weren't they in the place incorrectly anyway? Hadn't they taken over the land from Moab by force and by cunning and trickery? Hadn't they taken over, and weren't they usurping somebody else's property? And then didn't they attack us? And didn't the Holy One cause a miraculous a victory for us and a defeat for them? So we didn't do anything, but he thinks he saw us do horrible things to the locals, to the Amorite. The story keeps going, repeating itself, generation by generation. It's repeating itself right now. They see things. They don't know what they saw. They interpret it the way they want to interpret it. And they forget all the things that led up to what they see, and they blame everything upon us. Well, Ra'ah is not actual observation, you see. It's interpretation. And so the son of Zippor, Balak, he is the epitome of those who interpret things based upon their subjective opinion and their emotions and their pseudo-intellectual indoctrination. Do you see it around you? Yes, you do. And so, if you understand the occult, it is manipulating what people think they see. What they can be made to think they see, they can be used, that can cause fear or problems or a result or reaction, and that can cause them to do what you want to do, manipulation by the occult. All right, so that's our introduction to Balak. He will be a mystic. He will call forth mysticism. He will return us like to the Western mysticism that we saw in Egypt a little bit. Buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. We're playing with the big boys now. Well, let's talk then about his friend Balaam. Balaam is the prophet of the nations. Well, he doesn't really belong to any nation. He belongs to all the nations. He is a man who obviously has some spiritual connection and power, or at least some illusion of spiritual connection and power. But one thing you don't hear about Balaam is Balaam gave to the poor. Balaam took care of widows. Balaam followed the Torah. Balaam listened and responded to the calling of the Holy One. You see, Balaam lived according to the ways of the world and the ways of the occult. And while the Holy One could speak to him, and he had to listen when the point of the Balak Adonai's sword was pointed at his throat, when these things happened, he didn't really have any relationship with the Holy One. So he says many things. He responds to the call and agrees to come under certain circumstances, but he proves who he really is in his relationship and his actions in regard to his donkey. If you want to know what a man is like, watch how he behaves whenever some things don't go right around him. When it doesn't go according to his expectations or his desires. When the donkey stopped, or when the donkey moved out of his way, he beat the donkey. He screamed at the donkey. He talked to the donkey, and he got the donkey to talk back to him. And you see what a joke he made of himself. He proved he was not a truly spiritual man. He was a spiritist. He was a spokesman of the New World Order, and this will be the false prophet of the end of days. He represents and foreshadows the coming anti-Semitic one world order false prophet, the prototype of all one world religion messengers who have ever or will ever spread false hope, false unity, and false sense of prospect of peace to the world. Balaam, he was regarded by the sages as Avram's alter ego. As Avram came to do the service and the will of the Holy One, Balaam came to do the exact opposite and to induce people to do the exact opposite as well. So are we more like Abraham, or are we more like Balaam? Beloved, my time with you has come to an end. Our time around the Shabbat table, I hope you have understood, it has been kind of inspiring but kind of shocking today. But I pray that in so doing, in this time together, that we've had some time to just really begin to relax and fall into the grand end-time plan of the Holy One. So, till tomorrow, till Shabbat, next week, may you be blessed, may His kingdom come, and may His will be done in your life. Amen. See you next week.